Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to Old Man Rambles. I want to preface this video by saying I will be talking about some politics, but I want to say that when I'm referring to like Republicans and Democrats, I'm primarily speaking of politicians and not necessarily the voting public. I will be referring to them in some instances, but the main thrust of this video is about politicians. And I think American democracy might be dead. And I blame Republicans. Although Democrats take some share of the blame in this, mostly for their incompetence and inaction. But the Republicans have been actively destroying democracy for a while now. And I want to explain what I mean by that by giving some examples because I happen to remember things. I have watched the Republican Party violate the rules and ignore the rules pretty much definitely since Obama was in office. Things happened before that, but they've become very blatant in the last decade and a half or so. That's not to say Democrats don't, play fast and loose with the rules from time to time, but by and large, they do play by the rules. Yes, I agree, Democrats suck. But the worst thing I've seen the Democrats do in recent years is basically in the 2016 election, they foisted Hillary on us. Of all the Democrats in the primaries up to the 2016 election, Hillary was the absolute worst. But no, the DNC decided she should be the front runner and the nominee, so they kind of forced her on the rest of us. The same thing happened in 2024 when they kind of just pivoted to Kamala Harris when it was quite obvious that Biden couldn't handle another term. They didn't really give the voters a choice to choose Kamala Harris. They just kind of, made us vote for her. And nothing against Kamala Harris personally. I think of all the Democratic presidential candidates of the last, 15 or 16 years at least, maybe even the last 20 years, she's probably the best one. That's not a very high bar, but between Biden, Obama, Hillary Clinton definitely, and Kamala Harris, I do think she's probably the best one of the lot. My personal opinion of Obama is that he was a nice guy and he meant well. He just wasn't up for the task of the job. In spite of the fact that he won 2 terms, I still don't think he was necessarily great at his job. He was not a great president. I've said before, I think he's a mediocre president. But anyway, that's the worst that the Democrats really have done to break the rules. That's not saying they haven't done anything else. But to my mind, that's pretty much the worst thing that they have done in violation of rules and standards. Mitch McConnell stole a Supreme Court seat from Barack Obama, literally. All of his phrases about, we don't follow through on a nomination during a lame dunk presidential year or this close to election cycle were complete fabrications. If you study history at all, you will see that there have been nominations of presidents, of Supreme Court justices during lame duck president years. There have been nominations up to the election. There were at least 2 Supreme Court justices that were ratified after a new president had been elected. So everything Mitch McConnell said about not voting for was it Merrick Garland was a complete and utter lie. He simply refused to honor the president's choice and violated his oath of office. And he's quite proud of that too. That's his proudest achievement, the fact that he broke the rules and got away with it. He basically managed to just wave his hand and say, yeah, the president doesn't have the authority to do this because I'm not going to let him. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Ron DeSantis sent a bunch of immigrants to Martha's Vineyard. He broke the law doing that. And his constituents and even his non-constituents, a lot of conservatives I saw on Facebook cheering that decision, as if New England has no idea how to deal with immigrants, as if we have no immigrants here. And U.S. Department of Immigration regularly just sends truckloads of immigrants to New England. I mean, in the 1990s, we had a massive influx of Vietnamese immigrants in the state of Maine. Um, in the 2000s, 2010s, we had Bosnians and Serbs. We had a massive influx of Central and South American immigrants. And, you know, recently in the last couple of years, we had a massive influx of another slew of immigrants. I have no idea where they're from. I just know they have an accent and they've taken up a lot of the low-paying jobs. You know, they're working in McDonald's and Five Guys and sweeping and mopping floors and stuff, working at Target and Walmart. You know, I hear an accent, I just don't know where it's from. So we regularly, you know, U.S. immigration regularly dumps a ton of immigrants into New England. Happens all the time. And we deal with them. They're integrated into the community, they get apartments, they get jobs, they become part of the local community. But Ron DeSantis broke the law. He lied to those people to get them on the bus to drive to Martha's Vineyard. They were here. They also were not illegal immigrants. They were here legally. So Ron DeSantis just screwed these people over, and his supporters and many conservatives voters cheered for him. Donald Trump in his first term violated the annulments clause of the Constitution. His businesses took in $2.4 trillion during his presidency. That's a violation of the annulments clause. The emoluments, I'm pronouncing it wrong. He's not allowed to make money, and yet he made trillions of dollars. No, billions. He made $2.4 billion during his first presidency. He's already made nearly that much money in his second term. They didn't even bother to set anything up as kind of conservatorship like they did in his first term. They just ignored it completely, just hand waved it. And he, you know, during his first term, if you had government business and you said, hey, I have this thing I need to do, here's a list of locations that we could potentially have them at. If one of Trump's properties was not on that list, it was rejected. He deliberately funneled government business into his hotels and stuff. You know, indirect violation of that clause, which I can't pronounce. That says the president's not supposed to profit from being president. You know, he's violating the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, or with an executive order, and the Supreme Court is letting him. And the Republican politicians have realized that they can violate the Constitution, they can break the law, they can ignore the rules, all they want, and the Republican voters are going to cheer for them. They've realized this, and the Democrats are too inept to stop them. And it's only going to get worse. Because, like I said, they've realized they don't need to worry about the rules. They can break the law, violate the rules, and get away with it. And their supporters will cheer them. And they'll scream bloody murder if the Democrats even hint, if there's a faint whiff of them doing the exact same thing. And I see a lot of people on the left saying, oh, we need to bring out the vote in 2028 and, you know, flip Congress. That's not going to work. Just getting enough seats to get a majority in Congress, in the House and the Senate, isn't going to make this go away. They will continue to ignore the rules. They will do everything they can to rig the elections, to lie about illegal, fraudulent voting, and to violate the Constitution and the law in their favor. They've realized they can get away with it. To honestly fix this, we would need to destroy the Republican Party. We would need to basically vote out the president, every single Republican senator, House of Representatives, and state governor. We'd have to turn this country 100% blue to undo the damage the Republicans have done. And we need to do it consistently for probably the next 2 decades, until people forgot that it happened. That doesn't mean the country would improve. You know, we need a two-party system to keep the two parties in check. And the Republicans in Congress and in other branches of government have no interest in a two-party system. They are deliberately trying to destroy the Democratic Party, to destroy their ability to do or say anything. And going too far to the left and going too far to the right both have the same result. It ends in fascism and a dictatorship. You could have a dictatorship for the right, you can have a dictatorship from the left. It doesn't matter. Without some kind of check and balance between two or three parties, any one party gaining majority, too much control and too much power leads to authoritarianism. And we are getting there. And I believe we're too far into it to actually fix it without something really drastic happening. I don't know how to fix this. This is insane. I have not seen anything like this in history for a very long time. I'm not old enough to remember the Civil War or McCarthyism, or other times when the American government was in danger of being overrun by some political party or other. But it's been a long time. Even during McCarthyism, and McCarthyism was very bad, it wasn't this bad. There were enough people in the halls of government that realized you had to follow the rules. I'm not saying they didn't break them, especially McCarthy, and the people around him. There are plenty of times I could point to in history where the government broke the rules, broke the law, violated constitutional rights. It's happened. And sometimes it's happened quite severely and quite frequently. But when that happened, they were not blatant about it, as blatant as Trump is, as blatant as the Republican Party has become. They at least made an attempt to justify their actions, to act as though they were playing within the laws of the country and within the bounds of the Constitution. Again, I can point out instances where they completely screwed people over. There were the laws against communism, which Trump is resurrecting. There were the laws that were used against Japanese American immigrants to put them in concentration camps on U.S. soil, which Trump is reenacting. These things have all happened, but they've happened in different decades and in different presidencies. Trump is doing them all at once. And I really fear for my country. I fear for my government. I fear for the freedom of the people, the freedom of anyone who doesn't kiss Trump's ass, because that is ultimately what he wants. He's openly praised the Kim family of North Korea, how, the people of North Korea sing their praises. North Koreans sing the praises of their dear leader because they are required to by law. And Donald Trump praised that. Donald Trump wants to make it. I can't say what Donald Trump wants. I can say he wants to have the same authority. He probably does. He is very much a spoiled man baby, a narcissist. But I don't know what to do. And I'm afraid for my country. Good hunting.